Next speaker is Dmitry Eremin. He is a senior software engineer at HPDD Intel. He is responsible for supporting Lustre. And he will give a talk about Lustre Performance, especially with different fabrics.
Good morning, everyone. Today I would like to continue the talk about the LNet and LNG parameters, and would like to present the way how you can use a different set of cards which potentially you can have. So the brief agenda is we have a high variance of RDMA solutions right now, or it will be in the nearest future. And of course, you should tune for every solution independently. How to do this in the best way, I would like to present now. So, on the market right now have a lot of different solutions which provide RDMA communication, and Lustre hopefully will support all of them if they provide API for OFET driver, and this allows Lustre without any significant issue support all of those solutions. Right now, most of clusters based on where is the laser? Okay, I don't see the laser here.
In the middle.
In the middle, yeah. Most of solutions right now are based on InfiniBand, but the new techniques became more and more important, and probably in nearest future you will encounter with them also. So the typical cluster configuration is you have a lot of nodes with a single switch, and you can encounter this situation when one or maybe a few nodes will be upgraded with new version of cards and videos. And this card will most probably require you to tune the network performance to obtain the most optimal for particular this new hardware. Historically, the default LNet and LNG parameters was hard-coded for all Mellanox InfiniBand drivers, and they work fine in most cases, and even for new Mellanox cards they also pretty good. But anyway, if you would like to improve network performance, you probably will need to tune parameters for those cards also. But for different fabrics, they're pretty important to tune, just because the default configurations get very worse performance rather than with tuned parameters. For example, with TrueScale we have an example when the default parameters was at least twice worse than tuned parameters. So you can significantly improve the performance if you will just tune parameters. So if you will play with new fabrics, most probably you will disappointed with default performance, and you should pay attention on this and try to improve performance by setting different tunables. The complication here is the LNG driver in Lustre has 24 tunables. This is a pretty high numbers of tunables which can be used to optimize performance. And the important thing is all those parameters are set only in initialization phase, so it's most probably it's a boot time or when the Lustre is first mounted. Then you cannot change any of those parameters. This is an issue for now, and I hope it will be changed in the nearest future. But anyway, you should keep this in mind. So, as I mentioned before, probably you will have a different set of parameters for different fabrics which you will have, or different cards you will have. And it will be difficult to system administrator to copy properly parameters, properly configuration for each node. We propose to combine all of those settings in one file, and this file can be copied on all nodes, and just choose appropriate setting during the initialization of Lustre. For example, right now we have the default configuration, not default but usual configuration. You have one lustre.conf file which describes the whole configuration, and you have the special options for LNG driver with the set of the optimal parameters, which also mentioned in previous presentation you find out and would like to use. But as I mentioned before, this set of parameters is very dependent from particular hardware that you use. And probably if you will replace the card on this node, you will encounter these not so optimal parameters, or just not optimal parameters at all. To help to solve this situation, so we propose the new configuration file which can be used. So new lnd.conf file will allow you to combine all different settings in one file and choose them by name. So it can be named as a profile name. This name can be absolutely whatever you want, so it's not hard-coded. You can choose any name. But what you will require, it's just add 2 new lines in this file. The first line is mostly constant. The second line will describe your particular set of LND tunables which are optimal for particular hardware configuration. And then when you will have a set of those tunables in one file, the question how to choose appropriate one which you will use. So the card detection is done during the models is loaded into the kernel, and now the user space script is responsible for card detection and choose appropriate configuration. You can use any user space tools. For example, you can use LSPCI to observe a particular hardware vendor to check what exactly cards you are installed in this node, and then decide what configuration set you will use for this particular node. So this solution is very flexible. You can choose the tunables individually by card type, by version of card, or just whatever condition you would like to specify. It's not hard-coded, it's up to you. On this slide I present the example of this script file, the default. It's very close to default version, which we have already in Lustre. You can easily modify it by your own needs and provide the condition what you like. So the idea is, first of all, you will scan all cards that are registered in the system right now, and then decide according the cards you find, decide which profile to use. Again, this is the name of profile, which will correspond to the name of appropriate setting in the ko to ablng.conf file to use. And then the magic line will load the Lustre LNG driver with exactly appropriate settings which you will choose here. The one more issue you can encounter with the case when you have the router between different fabrics. So in this case, in the single node, you will have two different cards which intended to bridge the two different fabrics. For example, OmniPath fabric and InfiniBand. And this also the interesting case, just because you should pay attention on the following rules. To properly support this configuration, the single affet distribution should support all cards. This is extremely important, just because if you will use just, for example, Mellanox affet, you probably will not be able to make workable other fabrics card inserted in this node. And the serious issue, it's from one point of view it's advantage, but from our point of view it's a little bit disadvantage. But Offed API hide the details about the cards, and the Lustre LNG driver, which resides in the kernel, cannot easily detect which card actually used, and of course it cannot choose appropriate settings for these particular cards. It's just use this API to communicate with any card which provide the OFED API. And one more important thing is that for now all LND tunables are common for all network interfaces. This is again an issue just because you should balance between two different settings and provide some kind of joint settings which will not disturb performance for all cards. Not to provide best performance for one, but most probably you will have a trade-off between the different settings to provide compromised performance. But few fixes right now under review, and probably this will be changed in nearest future, and you will be able to set the different tunables for different interface. But right now it's not. And the other thing you should pay attention that the performance of router, of course, depends on the slowest card. And again, this is an issue when you will choose appropriate set of tunables. And at the end of my presentation, I would like to say a few words about the conclusion, what you should care of. So currently isn't possible to auto-tune LND inside the kernel. So as I mentioned, the OFED API hides the details. So the detection of cards are fully responsibility of user, and now user can manually detect the card and select the appropriate settings which is optimal for this particular hardware. And of course there are a lot of common set of tunables which can be used for all different cards and all different fabrics. So this is a real issue, and you should tune the parameters for every card and for every hardware and for maybe for every particular cluster and forever, and use those settings which are optimal for you, and use them by choosing if you specify this in the configuration script. So this is all what I would like to briefly present, just because the time is not enough to say in more details how to tune them.
So you mentioned 24 parameters, so if you plan full experiments, like 2 to 24 cases. So is anybody actually trying this, or there are some parameters that you know that are irrelevant?
Actually, I just they show the amount of parameters which LND model accept. So this is a real tunables which you can use and try to tune those parameters. So it's not exactly you should tune all of them, but anyway you have this ability. For example, in previous presentation, the only few parameters was used to show you that you can modify them and change the performance.
The method you propose to use mod probe aliases to configure the interfaces, that seems like that would lock you into, on a node, only one set of tunings. So for the near future case where you want to support tunings for different types of cards, is that solution expandable to that case?
Actually, this is an intermediate solution for now, and of course it can be used later in this way. But I hope when the new project will complete dynamic LNet configuration, this allows you to change those settings during runtime by using the special utility, and probably this solution will be also useful for initial setting of parameters which can be modified later. So it's usable now, and probably will be also usable in the future if you will not use this utility. You will based on this solution.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.